Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. The countdown to opening day continues this week with another preview. Joining us on our game day segment will be beat writer Trevor McCue from ON3's Maize and Blue Review. Michigan had their first scrimmage last weekend, and according to those who were there, the team looked sharp. The defense is still ahead of the offense, as expected, but Bryce Underwood and the guys had their moments against Wink Martindale's defense. As usual, news from camp is always optimistic, from both the coaches and the players. Until we tee it up for real in 2 weeks, we don't really know that much about this team. At player availability this week, TJ Metcalf talked about his status on the defense.
Yeah, I'm a starter, so after spring, I know for sure, coaches, they'll come up to me and be like, this is your team just like it's any other of the leaders' team. I think my role is going to be big for this team this year. The coaches constantly, let me know, they walk by me like, you got a voice too, you got, you're a leader too, you're a vet, just take over.
He also shared some thoughts on Bryce Underwood and what he's seen so far.
He's been doing a good job from spring to now. It's kind of hard, with the way we do practice, like the Maize and Blue practices. He be making some good throws. He made a couple of good throws the day before yesterday. So I think they all moving in the right direction. I like what I've been seeing. Jaden Davis. And yeah, Bryce has been doing pretty good.
TJ said Mikey Keene hasn't taken many reps, but he expects he'll pick things up fast when he's 100%.
Well, Mikey, he, still getting into it. So we've only been competing against, Bryce, Jake, and JD. But I think Mikey Keene, once he comes back in, I think it's gonna be like he never lost a step. I know he put in a lot of work, just making sure his throwing is right, making sure he's still locked in on what he has to do.
My guest today says he's ready to get the show on the road against New Mexico and see Michigan in action. Joining us next on our game day segment is Trevor McCue from On3's Maize and Blue Review. So stay with us. Joining us today here on the game day segment to preview once again Michigan football is Trevor McCue from On3's Maize and Blue Review. Great to have you back again, Trevor.
So glad to be back, Mike. Thank you.
Well, Trevor, we're getting, closer each day to the start of the season, as we know, and, everyone I talk to is more than ready for it. We've been getting coach and player availabilities for the media the last couple of weeks. As always, we don't get much in the way of intel from those, but it sure seems like everyone we hear from is very, very positive and confident, aren't they?
The vibes around this program are definitely higher. Expectations continue to grow. We know how strong the momentum was with the way the season ended last year. Obviously, nice home finale for the seniors with a blowout against Northwestern, go into a fourth straight victory over Ohio State, and then a bowl game victory against Alabama where all of their best players were still on the field. And then obviously some recruiting wins, right? The train's been rolling. But now that the team's practicing, and you're right, we don't always get a lot of intel, but it feels like we've gotten more this year under Sharon more than maybe in years past. Coaches have been very candid in their press availability. Players have also been very candid this year. It's not just hype for the season, but also I think acceptance and a realization of where things went wrong last year, and that, willingness to look at where mistakes were made and correct them is a big piece of why I think this team feels so much better in 2025.
Well, the team had their first scrimmage a few days ago, and from what we hear, Bryce Underwood did what was expected of him, and, he's a freshman. He had some wow plays and some not so wow plays. Overall, it sounds like Sharon is really happy with his progress, doesn't it, Trevor?
Yeah, they're excited about Bryce Underwood. No secret about that. And we've talked before, too, about it's not just the physical talent. It's what he's doing in meetings and the first in, last out kind of thing, but also the leadership he's showing on the field and the growth, because he's got to learn a lot. And the college game is going to be quicker. Like you said, there's going to be mistakes. He's still a freshman. It's tough to project, right? Like people talk about a ceiling like a Trevor Lawrence type year. And I have no idea if it's going to get there, but I know in terms of this offense, the identity they want to have, they seem real confident having Bryce Underwood leading the way.
Well, Sharon also spoke earlier this week about the quarterback competition as a whole, and he said he's happy with what he's seeing. It sounds though like Mikey Keene is still taking limited reps, or it was last week in practice. All things considered, though, the quarterback room is in much better shape than it was last year at this time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have Mikey Keene being in the room, even if he's not throwing at the level you'd like to see, like you said, still getting some limited reps as he's trying to get back to full. His veteran experience of just going through fall camps and the day-to-day of being a quarterback, and especially his relationship with Chip Lindsey previously being in the offense, I think is a huge boost. Garcia being added as well. Jaden Davis's mentality and his ability to throw, all of those things has taken a step as well. So the room is a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more talented, and things are trending in the right direction. And a big piece of that is Chip Lindsey. The work he's done since arriving has been phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, Sharon also said the team will know who the starting quarterback is before the public does, which you'd expect. And I know fans are chomping at the bit to have an official starter named, but Sharon's right. That the team knows first is really the only thing that matters, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the team knows, right?
Yeah.
If we're being honest, it's Bryce Underwood, right? A big thing Sharon said about the starter is going to be the guy that has the team. That's how they're going to know. Well, Sharon Moore knows Bryce Underwood has this team, right? So I understand waiting to announce it and everything that goes with that, but Underwood's been taking nearly all the one reps, and I think with Keene's injury, we don't know what the battle would have been. I do think Underwood would have won outright anyway, so it's a little unfortunate that's not there. But we know where this is trending. Bryce Underwood will probably be announced the starter next week after the last scrimmage, and we will officially be in the Bryce Underwood era.
Well, at his presser, Sharon also mentioned, and we addressed this at the top of the show, you never know what intel you're getting out of these pressers in camp. But he talked about a handful of true freshmen and some returning players who are impressing in camp. And it sounds like some of these true freshmen might even get early playing time, doesn't it, Trevor?
Yeah, this is a good group. And we knew that, right? We knew this was going to be a good class. Andrew Babelow was a name we heard a lot of praise of early. Doesn't sound like he's going to end up getting that left tackle job. He's definitely going to get some reps this season. But Evan Lake, whether it's the pressure he felt from Babelow or what, seems to have taken it to another level there. But on the defensive side, we're hearing about Shamari Earls, the corner who was not scared to put on the number 2 jersey. He knew exactly the pressure that came with that. He might be on a Will Johnson-like ascension, maybe a CB4 early in the year, and who knows how far he'll go. Nathaniel Awusa-Boateng's a linebacker who's gotten a lot of praise throughout this offseason as well from Sharon Moore and the coaching staff. So and I think back on the offensive side, I think Jasper Parker, I don't know if it's going to be right out the gate, but I think he's going to at least get his 4 games and preserve his red shirt and get some playing time this year too. I think they're really excited about the future at running back with him too.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sharon is usually optimistic at his pressers. Just he's that kind of a person. But the other day he said his team is getting better and better and better, living by the motto today, not tomorrow. Again, a lot of coaches do say things like that in August, but it sure seems like Sharon thinks he has a pretty darn good football team, doesn't it?
He's got a tell very similar to Harbaugh. There's no doubt Harbaugh was his mentor. You can see it time from time. And it's not always what Moore says. It's maybe that smile, right? Yeah. So a lot of them will say a lot of the same things, but he can't hold back this smile. Look, he said it best. He loves this team. He loves his coaches. He likes the way everything is coordinating together. And I think they did learn a lot from last year, like I said, and that's playing into it. Look, the today, not tomorrow just comes down to, it's no secret. There's been adversity the last few years, right? There's been questions that there aren't answers to that come up over and over again. And I think that's just built its way into the fabric of this team now, where it's like, look, we can't worry about the things we can't control, and we can't keep talking about what's going to happen tomorrow. Let's just go day by day. And you're right. It's kind of a cliche. People say it, but it really is in the blood of this program now, because they've had to do it going back to their national championship year.
That said, there are plenty of unknowns on the offensive side for this team right now. And when you think about it, each week the talent will get better and better. I mean, as compared to last year when we were all wondering what we were going to see, we at least know the talent's there this year, and it's going to progress.
I think that's a big piece of it, right? It's the known and the growth. And I think we're going to see a lot of it this year. And I think the optimism is high for a reason. You got to fall a little bit. I mean, it was a tough year last year with the transition and everything, but they're in a really strong position this year.
Yeah, and the one thing I know for a fact, I think we all know, is the offense. It can't be worse than it was last year, can it?
I know. I hate saying that, but it's true, right? I mean, to beat Ohio State with, was it less than 60 passing yards? I think?
Yeah.
And 2 interceptions. I mean, virtually no passing game, right? And I think that's kind of an interesting piece of this whole Bryce Underwood discussion too, right? Is he doesn't need to be Trevor Lawrence, right? He doesn't need to be the greatest freshman quarterback we've ever seen. He needs to do what Cade did in 2021, what JJ did in 2022, which is not turn the ball over, keep the offense on schedule, make the easy throws, and not make any critical mistakes, right? There's going to be room for him to make mistakes because he's going to make them. It's his ability to learn from them, bounce back quickly, and not do anything that costs Michigan the game. But, hey, with Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall there, they're going to be able to run the ball. They're optimistic the offensive line is improved. They're optimistic they have wide receiver targets that can get open for those easy throws for him. So do those things, and hopefully that elite defense will be elite again. And, hey, it's a similar formula that we've seen for Michigan's success in recent years.
Well, here we are 2 weeks basically from the opening kickoff against New Mexico. And, you know, I call this speculation mode because we've been talking for months and weeks now about what we might see from this team. We won't know until we tee it up, of course. The first week, maybe not until the second week against Oklahoma. But right now, as we sit here in the middle of August, what would you say your main concerns are about this offense?
Yeah, I think it's still, we need to see it, right? There's Donovan McCulley, as excited as folks are and the expectations up there. This is a guy that was all Big Ten, right, in 2023. He didn't play much last year, so that's your one option. And Fred Moore, I have a lot of hope at him at wide receiver, but he's got to put it together. Samaj bouncing back, but he's got to put it together. The offensive line feels like it's taken it, but we need to see it, right? There's nothing super, super tangible right now, except for maybe the running backs. I think that's a known commodity at this point. You know, there's all these reasons for optimism, starting with Chip Lindsey coming in and his play calling experience and his scheme. All these reasons to be excited, but I think it's still fair to be concerned because we haven't seen it, right? There were things a lot of us were excited about last year too that didn't come to fruition. So I think there's still that pause of, okay, let's see it actually executed first. But it does feel different this year. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, and we've been saying this for a while now, but if the defense is as good as we think it is, Chip Lindsey will have the time to put his pieces together, work it all out, and with all of the new faces on offense, that's really a luxury, isn't it?
It really is, and we heard this week from Sharon that Chip and Wink really have a good relationship and have been feeding off each other and working well together. That partnership, I think you nailed it, right? There's nothing a defense loves more than a good offense and vice versa. So this defense should be really good. Again, I'm getting kind of 2022 vibes where I think it's more about depth than top-end talent. Not to say there isn't top-end talent, but there's just depth all over this roster on the defense, which means they're going to be able to rotate. They're going to be able to keep guys fresh, and they're going to be able to win games in the fourth quarter. Again, Michigan MO during its success run to start this decade. So that'll be the goal. And if you look at how good this defense was at the back half of the year, again, with an offense that we said can't get worse, imagine how good that defense could be with less 3-and-outs from its offense, less short fields, less bad, turnovers. It really should be or could be a top 5, top 3 unit in the country if this offense is able to match them.
Oh, absolutely. And, I was listening to Joel Klatt a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about just how good that Michigan defense was last year. And he mentioned that, he didn't even know if Michigan fans appreciated how good that defense was. And he said, I'm just going to throw a stat out at you to make you realize how good they were. And this sort of boggled my mind, but he said Michigan's offense went 3 and out on 80% of their possessions. Right. And that team still beat Ohio State and Alabama. And that is a mind-boggling statistic, isn't it?
It's absurd. It really is. And again, when you talk about a scheme that is reliant on fresh players and being able to rotate and largely winning a field position battle, 80% of the time the defense is off on the sideline for 3 plays and then right back in, and they weren't as deep. So yeah, what they did was incredible. Look, we saw some early hiccups with Wink and his scheme and guys kind of getting on the same page. But once they figured that out, especially, you look at second half of Indiana on, they were incredibly dominant. And you just have to feel like those speed bumps or whatever have been cleared now. So coming into this year, they're able to, now we can pepper in some of that exotic stuff maybe he wasn't able to get away with last year. And again, an offense that, what if 20% of the drives aren't 3 and out? Just, even 1 out of 5, you're adding a few more first downs. That's more plays on offense, more rest for the defense. Just a massive number. And I don't think it's going to be that hard to achieve either. Back to your original point. Better than 80% 3 and out isn't a huge ask, I don't think, in terms of this offense improving.
No, we've got to hope it's better than that. So
that's got to be.
Yeah,
it's got to be.
And it's why I don't even worry about this defense. And sometimes I'll sit back and say, am I being overconfident? But other than maybe some secondary concerns, and I can't say that I'm really that concerned about the secondary and the corners either. I think this defense is going to, I don't know if they're going to start out elite, but man, they sure have the potential to, again, because of the depth and the talent everywhere, to end up being elite, don't they?
I'm with you. The secondary, it's kind of similar to what I said about the offense. There's a lot of things to be excited about, but there is some, hey, I need to see you prove it element, right? Zeke Berry turned a corner last year when he moved to corner from nickel, but he still hasn't played a ton of corner. So we're going to need to see that sustained over a year. Jair Hill, I've seen first round NFL mock drafts with Jair Hill in it. So obviously people think he has that potential. We know he does. He's still got to put it together. He's had some roller coaster a couple years in Ann Arbor as well. And obviously Rod Moore's health kind of continues to linger over as he's getting back up to full steam. So he's probably going to come on, I would guess, after the first couple games, and we'll see him get some limited snaps and work his way up. So you're putting a lot of pressure on guys like Brandon Hillman, Mason Curtis, TJ Metcalf, which again, the hype is there. We know how good they can be. We just need to see it first. But that front seven is going to do them a lot of favors. That's for sure.
Well, at the top, we were talking about the pressers and the availability the media's had in the last couple of weeks. And I've been enjoying Wink's pressers. He had that air of confidence when he talks about his guys. He's got that grin that, sort of says, hey, we're going to be good. And I think he settled back into being a college coach again. Yes, it took time, but it really seems like he's enjoying his time with these guys, doesn't it?
He's having fun. That's for sure. And I don't think he would have gone back to college, just any college. I think a lot of things had to align, and Michigan was, one of the few spots that made a lot of sense. And he's been open about that too. And I do think he'll go back to the NFL when the right opportunity comes around. He's been candid about that as well, but he's been open and said, look, him and his family love it here at Ann Arbor, and he's got good football players, and he knows it. I remember even last year when he first got here, they were talking about Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart, and he's like, wait, you used to rotate these guys? Like, what? He couldn't believe it. So now he's still got Derek Moore, and he's got, Cam Britt coming along, and replacing Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. It's not going to be easy. I'm not going to pretend it is. But just like in 21 when Hutch left and Ajabo left, it's like, oh, how are we going to do it? It's this committee approach. And they've said all offseason they're 10 deep on the defensive line between defensive tackle and edge. And there's probably another 4 guys that could play, but they're already 10 deep. Like you literally just can't play everybody. So he can't hide his excitement, and a happy wink is a funny wink. The quotes that come out of that guy are unreal.
Well, injuries are something we haven't talked about. Always a concern in camp. You want to avoid any players, especially key players, getting hurt. Other than Hogan Hansen, have you heard anything in the way of injury news leaking out?
Yeah, no, so I mean, Sharon even said they're not dealing with any long-term injuries right now, which is a welcome change. And I'm glad you brought this up too, because a question I get a lot is what's different with Sharon Moore versus Harbaugh, or what has he changed this year? We keep hearing things are different. They've really focused on, look, they're going to be a physical football team. They're not hiding that, but they've done a much better job of, I don't know how to say practicing safer, but avoiding a lot of these injuries that would come up in practice and during the fall off season. So yeah, Hogan Hansen, and that goes back to earlier in the year, still coming back. I think he's probably going to be a couple weeks into the season until we see him. We know about Rod Moore. We've discussed that. Mikey Keene's still dealing with his rehab. But other than that, yeah, there's really no names out there other than a guy missing a day here or there for your typical day-to-day stuff. So man, if Michigan has this much depth that we keep talking about, and they're entering the season fully healthy, that's a dangerous formula, and one you're going to be really happy to have with Oklahoma week 2.
Oh, amen. Knock on wood, the injury situation stays as it is. Final question before we let you get away, Trevor, and I've been asking this question to close the show to each guest the last couple of weeks as we continue our previews. Do you still expect the NCAA to issue their sign gate verdict before the first game? And if so, would you be shocked if the punishment was worse than maybe a few more games for Sharon? You know, a loss of scholarships, some recruiting punishment, and a hefty fine. Would anything more than that just stun you?
I don't know if stun's the right word. I will say, I mean, that's been the consistent theme for a while, or expectation, I should say. I do think there's been some negotiation, if you will, or some common ground that's been found with Michigan and the NCAA in recent months, and both sides came together and were like, look, we got to shut down the leagues. This has got out of control. Let's figure it out. Look, I'm expecting a fine that Michigan will care about, but fans probably won't. As far as recruiting restrictions, I don't know if it'll be scholarships, because what is a scholarship in the NIL era, right? There's something like that dead period we saw Michigan impose earlier this year, maybe a limit on official visits, that kind of stuff, I think is probable. They're going to be harsh to Jim Harbaugh in language, because that's what the goal seems like it's been from the beginning. And he will not care one bit, but I'm sure there will be some language for him, show cause for Connor, obviously. Yeah, the suspension piece for Moore seems like the one interesting piece. Is Michigan going to be willing to accept 2 games? Does that willingness to accept prevent the NCAA, the COI, from going to 4 or more than that? Because would there be an appeal and continue this process on? I think that's maybe the one piece that lingers, because I think it's the only thing that's really going to impact this team, right? Whether Moore is suspended and for which games. And then, look, the vacating wins, the playoff bans, all the things some rivals were dreaming of that just hasn't been on the radar. That would stun me. That would be the stun. Anything in the territory of past accomplishments being impacted, that would be a stunner. Other than that, how many games Sharon get would probably be, anything more than 4 would be shocking to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully we put the lid on this in the next in the coming days or the weeks just before the season, and get it out.
It'll be before the season for sure.
Hopefully,
it's got to be. Yeah, it has to be. You would think. Although they suspended Harbaugh while he was on the plane. So knows, right?
You don't know how these guys are going to work it. So we'll wait and see. Here with us today as we continue our countdown to kickoff with New Mexico has been Trevor McCue from On3's Maize and Blue review. Trevor, it's always a pleasure having you on the show, and we look forward, once we kick it off in a couple of weeks, to getting you back on.
You too. Thanks. Would love to come back anytime.
On Quick Hits today, next week we'll wrap up our season previews with senior editor John Borton from the Wolverine magazine. Thanks again to today's guest, Trevor McCue from On3's Maize and Blue review. After next week's show, it's back to our season programming of 2 shows a week. Tuesday's Visitors Edition and Thursday's Michigan Game Day show. We're almost there, so make sure you stay with us for what should be a very interesting year of Michigan and Big Ten football. That does it for now. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network. and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!